I want to start us off in Japan, if we can. We've just had those rather disappointing GDP numbers. I know you're quite bullish on the Japan rally. A lot of it's been fueled by the weak yen. Do you think that the rally in Japanese stocks has still got some gas in the tank?
We think there is more upside for the Japanese stock market. In fact, the way the Nikkei is responding to the GDP numbers this morning, it's up. It seems to be a case of bad news being good news. The weaker than expected economy has given rise to hopes that perhaps the Bank of Japan will not increase interest rates in any significant way this year, even if it does once or twice. It will not do anything as aggressive as the Fed did, and that is seen as a positive, a tailwind for Japanese equities. But more than that, I think you have significant corporate governance reforms has taken place in Japan over the last several years. Of course, the weaker yen, the easier monetary policy, the decent corporate earnings, the undemanding valuations, put all that together, still makes a case for more upside for Japanese equities, which are relatively underowned compared to US equities.
Just want to get a little more on your thoughts about the next move for the Bank of Japan, because that weak GDP read, to what degree has that thrown a spanner in the works for the normalization of policy in March or April?
Well, it is still possible that the Bank of Japan could lift interest rates in April. That's our base case scenario at this juncture. I don't think that derails. I don't think the latest GDP numbers derail their expectations. But don't expect the BOJ to do what the Fed and the ECB and the BOE did. In other words, continue to increase interest rates in a consecutive fashion. I think they will hike rates once, or they will adjust their rates once, or normalize policy to a limited extent, and then wait and watch. Because Japan has been mired in deflation for a long time. And I think the BOJ will be careful in the way it moves. He'll tread cautiously. And it's quite clear that, the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Japan said recently, in fact, last week, he said that, monetary policy will remain accommodative even if they normalize policy, implying that rate hikes will not be significant, even if they do happen anytime soon.